So yes, thank you. The topic is anatomy of Anarthas. I started, so we'll do a little review, anatomy of Anarthas. And I did a little presentation of the common sense of anatomy. That's why we showed a heart, is the structure of the body and dissection and how the different parts fit together. That's the primary use of the word anatomy. And then there's a secondary use, there's how we're using the term. Analysis of an entire system with its different parts and how the different parts fit together with the other parts, what they're made up of, and so forth. So the secondary meaning of anatomy. So a systematic analysis of Anarthas. And we spoke about the meaning of the word Anartha. Artha in English means many things, but something that's wanted, something that's appreciated, something that's important, something that's valued, something you want. And anartha is something unwanted, the opposite. So, why is this topic important? All of us, this is a 201 topic, not a 101 topic, meaning introducing people to Krishna consciousness is part of Krishna consciousness. But we're not the International Society for Introducing People to Krishna Consciousness. We're the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That means one has to continue in that process of devotional service and go further and go further. And for those who wish to go further, they have to know the path, and they have to know the obstacles on the path. And we're all chanting. We discussed in chapter 1 of Harinam Chintamani the glories of the holy name, and glories after glories after glories after glories after glories, and we're doing this glorious thing, chanting of the holy name, but love of God isn't awakening. Something is happening, at least as long as we continue chanting. But why is it that we're not experiencing what it says you can experience? Because the holy name is so powerful and so special, and Krishna himself, and so forth. And because of offenses. It's important because we need to know what offense-less chanting is, and what offenses are, and how to go beyond them, and the consequences if we don't. It's something like the topic that we discussed this morning in the Bhagavatam class, Canto 3, Chapter 31. Kapila Deva is discussing with Devahuti the process of devotional service, because she wants to know, way back in Chapter 25, how to become free from undue attachment to the body and bodily relations and all the things that go with material life. So the way is association with devotees, and in the association of devotees, devotional service. So here we are, in the association of devotees, engaging in different ways in devotional service, but the love of God isn't being experienced. So an impetus to go further in devotional service is to understand the consequence if you don't. So chapter 30 is Kapila Dev's explanation of what happens if you don't fruit of activities. That's the default position. Take away Krishna and devotion to Krishna, what do you have? Material life, fruit of activities. And that chapter is the anatomy of fruit of activities, and it's not nice. It's scary. And then after that, then you take birth again, and the description of being taken to a hellish condition, that's also scary. And then receiving the next body. So that's chapter 31. The living entity's journey into the womb of the mother, and the period of time in the womb of the mother, and then coming out and taking birth, and again being distracted and bombarded. And so it's impetus, because we're moved by, we don't like suffering. And there's lots of suffering if you are in the position of being forgetful of Krishna. There's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, quoted here, Bahu Janma Kariyati Shravana Kirtana Tabu Natapaya Krishna Prema Dana. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, Bahu Janma, he will not get the love of Godhead that is the ultimate goal of this chanting. And essentially, it means saying no to Krishna. We saw a slide that explains what Apa, Radha, Apa and Aradhana put together as Aparad. So it takes us away from the mood of worship of Krishna. So it's essentially saying no to Krishna. And from offenses arise anarthas in the heart. So this is a little summary, especially for those of you that weren't with us, but those of you that were, so we can move on to part 2. In Bhajana Rahasya by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it's a book that explains the rasa of bhajan, how to move further and further and further in the mood of and the effectiveness of devotional practices. So he explains there that ultimately all anarthas stem from tattva vibhrama. This is a review point, but vibhrama means a great error. Brahma, it means a mistake, and vibhrama means big mistake. So, not properly understanding tattva, the spiritual truth, spiritual realities that are accessible to us in life. And so the next question is, or topic, there are 4 categories of anarthas. They start with tattva vibhrama. Without looking at your notes, can you remember what the next one was? From mistaken understanding of tattva? Asat? Trishna. Asat means impermanent, and Trishna means thirst. Thirst for the impermanent. Material desire. So, ignorance of truth, material desire. That's the default position. And then from material desire, offense, aparad. And then the 4th one was Hridaya Dorbalyam. Hridaya Dorbalyam. Prabhupada translates that in Bhagavad Gita as petty weakness of heart. Krishna addresses Arjuna. How is this Hridaya Dorbalyam overcome you. You're an Aryan, you know the progressive values of life. So then, in that state of weakness, even we know we may, at least theoretically, notionally, accept this is good for me, but we don't properly do it because we're weak spiritually. So in this category of mist, Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses this metaphor, mist and clouds. The mist of ignorance is where it starts, and then the clouds of offense. So from Tattva Vibrahma to Asat Trishna to Aparad and Hridaya Dorbalyam. Now there's different models and sequences. I'm not going to review that, but we showed there's slight variation, but there's certainly consistency. With Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, those of you that are familiar with Madhurya Kadambini, that's MK, Madhurya Kadambini. In chapter 3, his model is from a different perspective. It's not a sequence, it's where do they arise from? Anarthas arise from different sources. From previous sins, from trying to be the enjoyer of one's previous pious activity, from offenses of different kinds, and then finally labha, puja, and pratishtha. You're a little successful in your spiritual life, honor comes and position comes and something comes, and one thinks oneself as the creator of that and the enjoyer of that, and it's another anartha. Then we discussed, was following Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha. He raises the question, why is it that if devotion and devotional service are so powerful, why is it that it has to be repeated? It's so powerful. And one answer is because we make offenses. And because we make offenses, the power of the holy name and the power of our devotional service, the fullness of it doesn't come to us. There was reference in Jiva Goswami's writing, Bhakti Sandarbha, to this avritir asakrit upadeshat. It's worth saying that a number of times and remembering it a number of times, because it's a powerful little sutra from Vedanta Sutra. Can somebody remember the meaning? Avartir, asakrit, upadeshat. Remember?
Sadhana must be repeated many times.
Yeah. Regularly over a prolonged period of time. And why is that? Because we already said, not just in this lifetime. Jiva Goswami says it strongly, that anyone who takes birth is carrying with them a whole set of baggage of previous offenses. Very similar to sin. Sin is something that isn't just something that happens in this life, it's from previous life, and it carries over whatever doesn't get experienced in the prior life. Whoops, there's some spelling mistake. What three features must be present for some activities to be considered sadhana? There was 3 of them. Who can remember? This is just review. Yeah. And? With reverence. Yeah. So, regularly prolonged over a period of time, and with reverence. So, in other words, that's from Patanjali Muni in his Yoga Sutras, but sadhana is the definition, or making some, what's the Sanskrit term in Bhagavad Gita? When you do something, make some effort, a spiritual effort, over a period of time, again and again. What's the, Abhyasa. Yeah, abhyasa. Thank you. Abhyasa. Endeavor. Spiritual endeavor, or sadhana. The words are very close, not exactly interchangeable, but so we shouldn't be naive and think, well, I'm chanting. What's going to happen? Love of Godhead. No, not exactly that we're thinking in that way, but conversely, there must be a very strong determination to come to the state of purity, and part of coming to the state of purity requires dedication and commitment to reach that state, knowing that there's reason why we need to be very dedicated and regulated and live our lives internally and externally very clean, not fanatical or not obsessive, but in a proper way. So that's a little summary, and we showed this picture. I like this picture. This is Haridas Thakur and hanging his clothing while Gadadhar Pandit is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda are listening along with Rupa and Sanatan. The original painting has their names beneath in Bengali. This is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Sarup Damodar and so forth, the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri. And there's the king paying his obeisances before all the sadhus. So in that same mood as King Prataparudra, in mood of humility, we'll try to go on to part 2. So a question can be asked, a very valid question: how is it possible for spiritual power to be blocked by any material power? Like we say, light is stronger than darkness. So you turn on the light and darkness gets dispelled, right? I say it all the time. Prabhupada said it all the time. So how is it that the power of the holy name is blocked by some material power? It's a paradox. And Jiva Goswami addresses it in this way. He gives the example that just like the quality of fire, the quality of fire is that it burns. So the spiritual power of devotional service and the holy name cannot be blocked by sin. In fact, sin is eradicated by spiritual power. So this is a distinction. Sin is susceptible to and cannot block spiritual power, but offense can. And the example is, the fire has the capacity to burn, but if something is wet, like wet grass or wet wood, then it doesn't ignite right away. It has to become dry. So the effect of that which is spiritual may take some time. That's this avritir asakrit. So part of, if we're doing our sadhana properly, that is regularly for a prolonged period of time with faith and reverence and proper respect, then we're making the wet wood dry, along with also the activities of life that should be proper and in the mode of goodness. Makes the wet wood dry. Next section in this Bhakti Sandarbha part is, as well as Jiva Goswami, as well as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there's the sources or the categories of aparad, or anartha, some of which arise from aparad. So aparad is offenses against God, offenses against the holy name, that's inattentiveness, offenses against devotees, and offenses against other living entities. Now these offenses are, each one of them are connected to Tattva Vibrahma. Because each one of these, God, the holy name, devotees, and the spark of life, Chitkana, the living entity, they're tattva, they're spiritual. In this world there are spiritual entities. And ignorance about tattva can result in offense. So manifestations of offenses are manifested, the root, or they stem from tattva vibrahma. So there's different kinds of offenses. And you'll find that in, well, so many of the discussions, that Madhurya Kandamati discussions of offenses, different manifestations of them. And here's some distinction between sin and offense. We've touched on it a little bit. The very word sin has in Sanskrit different terms, papa, or agham, or mala, and other names. And I checked with Radhika Raman to see if I had this correct. You know, the etymology of the word agham. And the answer he gave me was, it's one of those words that can have multiple meanings depending upon its application. So this one is a suitable application. And agham basically means something that's difficult to destroy. Gham is destroy, and agham is difficult to destroy. So the nature, what makes something a sin? I mean, besides it says in Scripture, the Bible says, the Ten Commandments say, don't do this and don't do that and don't do the other thing because it's sin. But what makes it sin is it's very difficult to destroy. It makes an impression in the body or the mind or both. And it's, you know, if there's some, it's common that devotees will say, you know, the ISKCON vernacular is impure reminiscence. You're going along with something, chanting or just life, and all of a sudden something comes in your mind about something that happened, you know, long ago that was, you know, not nice. You hurt somebody or did something bad, or you know, something sinful. So it's stored in the mind. You with me? Good things too, they're stored in the mind. Bad things too, they're stored in the mind. Sins are stored in the mind and the body. And you know, the body may feel fear or lust or anger or something due to this stored impression. Now, that's what makes something sin. Now, here's a little diagram how sin binds a living entity. So there's some impression. Some sin is done, and some impression in the mind and body are created. And if that sinful activity tendency does repeat, if we don't check the sinful tendency once the impression is made, then it continues further and further impressions, And then the Sanskrit terminology becomes vasana, becomes literally the dress of the soul. One becomes a compulsive thief, or a lusty person, or an alcoholic, or somebody, a liar, or they don't even know that they're lying because they're just so habituated to lying, and other such things. So they repeat them again and again, and that repetition of that sinful activity brings about forgetfulness of Krishna that starts the whole cycle again. We're bound by sin in a downward spiral. Now, scriptures teach us that devotional service can eradicate sin. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yashami. Offenses are more serious because it doesn't just affect the mind and the body, but it goes deeper. It touches the soul or the heart of the living entity, and it creates a certain regard towards those things that are spiritual. A condescending, proud attitude towards life and others, but others includes sparks of life, living entities, chit kana, the soul. We don't see the soul, we feel this other nature. The example that Jiva Goswami gives in his Bhakti Sandarbha is this fellow, Daksha. Daksha offended Lord Shiva, and for the offense of Lord Shiva, he lost his head. And then by the appeal of the assembled personalities, he was given another head, but it was an embarrassing looking head. It was a goat's head. So he asked for forgiveness, and forgiveness was given, but the tendency remained. So that in his next life he did the same thing. He offended Narada Muni. So it helps create a nature where someone continues the same thing, even they may go to the other person and ask for forgiveness for that offense. Offense is more serious than sin. Scriptures of the world make a big deal about sin. This is a presentation saying it's a bigger deal about offense. Very serious business. There's a related, very nice verse from, this is the Navayogendras visiting a yajna where King Nimi is performing a yajna, these first chapters of the 11th canto. A verse that's often quoted, Bhayam dutiya biniveshitaksya ishad apitasya viparya yosmritihi. Prabhupada quoted that often. This isn't a translation, it's a rendering of that message. When the living entity is attracted by the material energy, which is separate from Krishna, he is overpowered by fear. Because he is separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the material energy, his conception of life is reversed. In other words, instead of being the eternal servant of Krishna, he becomes Krishna's competitor. So there's these two parts, viparya-yo, or viparya-ya, misidentification with matter, that's this tattva vibrama, and then forgetfulness of the nature where I am Krishna's servant becomes I'm the competitor of Krishna. Like Daksha. And or those in relation to Krishna. A competitor with those in relation to Krishna, whether it's Lord Shiva or Narada Muni or the person sitting next to you or on the other side of the temple room or whatever it is. The material consciousness where there's offensive mentality, an allowance for offensive mentality, or somehow manifests. Again, Jiva Goswami says, we're carrying these propensities from us for many, many lifetimes. There's a whole stockpile just when we take birth, aside from this life. Jiva Goswami explains, he uses both of these terms, Bahir Mukha Jeev, the original ignorance or problem or the original sin is turning our attention away from Krishna. Vai Mukyata or Bahir Mukha Jeev, the desire to turn away from God. There's our fellow turning away from God. There's the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, and he wants this place over here. And Jiva Goswami explains this can be of different degrees, just like ignorance can be of different degrees. Rebelliousness can be of different degrees. It may be just affecting the body and the mind, one desires sense gratification or mental speculation. Not so much an inimical attitude towards God, but one becomes overwhelmed by, there's sense enjoyer people that think they're religious. They're not like against God, at least by word, but by deed they're becoming the enjoyer of the property of God. But offense is deeper. It goes to the heart level or the regard for Krishna level. Denying the existence of God, or denying the purity of saintly persons, or failing purposefully, consciously to give honor and recognition and respect to that which is spiritual. Again, God, the process of devotional service, the devotee, and the spark of life, the soul, within all forms of life. So the message here is, offense is more serious than sin. And as sin is hard to eradicate, it can be eradicated by the power of devotional service, or the power of something spiritual. It's more pernicious or more difficult to remove when there's offense. Indicated, for example, that even when seeing that which is spiritual, the example that Jiva Goswami gives is, who is this fellow? This is Shishupal. Shishupal is criticizing Krishna, and where's Bhima with his club, and Arjuna wants to get him too. He is criticizing Krishna. So that's one may see something spiritual in nature in front of him, but the offensive person is unable to see or recognize the spiritual nature. Or seeing God. Seeing God, they're seeing Krishna, not recognizing him, blaspheming him. Then seeing the devotee. Some very simple devotee, to think of somebody that you know that's not sophisticated, but very genuine and pure and simple in their devotion. That person may not be recognized because they don't have material sophistication or knowledge or capacities to do other things. And similarly with the holy name. One may not see the spiritual nature of the holy name. I mean, it's a really good exercise when chanting the holy name to meditate on the holy name as Krishna, because the holy name is Krishna, and you're with Krishna just by calling Krishna's holy name. He's so kind. And it's not fiction, it's fact. So an offensive person cannot see spiritual nature in bhakti, bhakta, or even Bhagavan. I suppose the painting could be Duryodhana also. He basically did the same thing. is Shishupal. A nice example from Chaitanya Charitamrita is Gopinath Acharya, who was the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, speaking about the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was objecting, don't call him God. Gopinath said, despite directly perceiving the symptoms of the Supreme Lord in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you cannot understand him. This is commonly called delusion. But there's some detail to the pastime. Now by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, he removed that covering, that ignorance, and the disposition, wrong disposition of heart. He awakened bhakti within Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's heart by his special potency, and then revealed his transcendental form. In his Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami reviews the 10 offenses one after the next, as do many of our acharyas in their writings. And as was mentioned yesterday, the sadhu ninda is not only most common, but according to Jiva Goswami, it's most dangerous. Offenses against devotees, because when you offend, or when you offend, or a devotee is offended, Krishna takes it personally, having to do with this. He explains this conception of mamata. When the devotee has this conception of mamata, or Krishna is mine, that is intimately attached to the person being served, not like he's my property, I'll put in my pocket and walk down the street, but this is my only be-all and end-all meaningful shelter in life, mamata. Krishna also considers the same regarding his devotee. We're going to discuss this a little bit more. And interestingly, sinning on the strength of chanting is commonly considered, maha aparad. But Jiva Goswami gives special treatment to this one. Artha Vada, the doctrine of thinking that the statements concerning the powers of the holy name are exaggeration. And he explains, we'll go over it again a little bit more. One does not believe in the power of the holy name, or one uses the holy name as some secondary means to one's end that one wants to achieve. He indicates this is utilitarian mentality. Even you don't believe there is some effect, so you just use it. It's highly offensive, highly non-devotional. He explains, Jiva Goswami, that categories of offenses have been identified. Now there's also severity. Some are more severe, like these two are particularly severe. And when it's not so severe, there's a reaction or consequence, and that is the fruit of your practice of devotion isn't something that you can experience so readily. Like I just received this letter from someone from China. For 2 years I've been practicing devotional service, and when I started I was way up here, and now I feel my devotion is way down there. And I don't know why that happened. I'm going to say, pay attention when you hear the this discussion when I come to visit, but here's the principle. Offense. It's really simple. Before you start chanting the holy name, you're not making offenses against the holy name. Before you associate with devotees, you're not making any offenses to devotees. But then you start associating with devotees, And there's this cleansing that takes place very quickly. You go, ooh, and then stick around for a while and you start making offenses. Ooh. Right? Then so the question was, what am I doing wrong? You're making offenses. We are making offenses. Because otherwise we would be experiencing love of God, and we're not. So there's less severe, where the experience of the fruit of devotional practice that Scripture says you will experience, you don't experience due to offenses. When it's very severe, it makes it difficult to even practice. And one may even dislike it, or vilify it, or criticize it. He uses this comparison that fever has its degree of intensity. And when there's fever, you may lose your appetite, but if you become very high fever, you may lose your life. So now here's how he deals with this sadhu ninda. There's an example. He gives us the example. Durvasa Muni, having offended Maharaj Ambarish, he prays to the personality of Godhead to take away Sudarshan Chakra. And you know what Supreme Lord says, I can't do that. I can't do anything outside of what my devotee wants, because they hold me as everything, and so I hold them as everything. I have no independence to do anything. You have to go to them. That's this mamata, simple definition. The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the core, in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. That's the Supreme Lord speaking to Durvasa Muni. That's the meaning of mamata. So one who offends the devotee, Krishna takes it very personally. You have got a big problem if you offend a devotee. And another very nice example of this is in the Vishnu Sahasra Nama, one of the 1,000 names of Krishna or Vishnu, is Vasumana. And Vasu refers to this personality here, Grandfather Bhishma, who is one of the Vasus. And Vasumana indicates that Krishna is always thinking of Vasu. And why is Krishna always thinking of Vasu? Because Vasu is always thinking of him. This explanation is given by Baladev Vijayabhusan in his commentary on Vishnu Sahasranam, where he's explaining this Vasuman. One morning Yudhishthira went to see Krishna. Well, Bhishma Deva is lying on the bed of arrows. He hadn't gone to see him yet. And he goes to pay his respects to Krishna early in the morning, and Krishna's in meditation. So he doesn't want to interrupt him because he's in meditation. He's meditating a long time. And finally Krishna stops his meditation and acknowledges Yudhishthira's presence, and Yudhishthira asks him, "You're meditating. What was it you're meditating on?" "I was meditating on Bhishma." Because he was so much absorbed in thought of me, I was so attracted to become absorbed in thought of him. So that's an example of mamata in relation to Vasumana, the 1,000 names of Vishnu. Greatly afflicted and lying in the bed of arrows, Bhishma Dev remembered me at the last stage of his life. Because of his remembrance of me, O best of men, I now always remember him. So, in relation to sadhus, a little bit like the question that Mukunda was asking yesterday. It's one thing if you give feedback or you express, I'm not so sure I agree with this decision or policy or something or other. I mean, ultimately I'll defer, but I want to express. So giving feedback is one thing, but when there's disrespect or it's enviousness to pull somebody down because I want to be in that position or something like that, that's offense. Here's a little further explanation about atarto vada harinami. It's an offense to think that the glories of the name of the Lord are mere praise. That's the language of Padma Purana. He who thinks that the glories of the name are mere praise is the most sinful among humans and definitely falls to hell. This is a reference, given by Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha in relation to why he holds this particular offense as most serious amongst the 10, this and Sadhuninda. If a person, hearing the various results of chanting my name, has no faith, and rather thinks the results are exaggeration, I throw him in the greatest suffering, where his limbs are afflicted with various pains in frightening samsara. Now, the note is, this is from Brahma Samhita, but the footnote of that note is, it's a different Brahma Samhita. So I don't know what that other Brahma Samhita is. It's apparently something that Jiva Goswami knew about, because he refers to it. And in his classic way, the Lord speaks to Bodhayana. Jiva Goswami gives as an example, it's really nice how he does this. The example is King Nriga. So there's King Nriga, and the Bhagavatam describes he was a very elevated person. He was a devotee of Krishna. In fact, specifically it says, he wanted to see Krishna. He's a king that wanted to see Krishna out of devotion for Krishna. But he committed this particular offense, that, well, maybe devotional service isn't going to do it, and so I need to augment and supplement and hedge my position with doing some piety. So the piety that he decided was to something very nice. Devotees can give charity to brahmanas. In this case, he had lots of cows, so he was giving cows in charity to the brahmanas. Nothing wrong with the activity. It's the consciousness behind the activity, thinking to supplement just in case Krishna fell asleep and didn't pay attention to my devotion to him, that I have to do something else, to add to it. So he did some piety, so given in charity. So Krishna made an arrangement that he could see him, but also have this undesirable result of not having full faith in the glories of the holy name. It's not exaggeration, or the glories of devotional service. So, you know the story. He gave away cows, and one of the cows wandered back in the herd of cows, and he gave that same cow that he gave to first Brahmana to Brahmana number 2. And then Brahmana number 2 and Brahmana number 1 had an argument over whose cow. No, that's my cow. No, that's my cow. No, the king gave it to me. No, the king gave it to me. They went back to the king and said, you did a no-no. You gave away the same cow. You took the property from Brahmana number 1 and gave it to Brahmana number 2. And you're going to have to suffer a reaction for that offense. You offended a Brahmana. So we'll give you the privilege of choosing whether you'll take the offense first and then enjoy your piety later, or do all your piety, let that be exhausted, then take the responsibility for the offense. So he calculated and said, I think I'll take the offense first, get it out of the way, So for the offense, he became a lizard, but then Krishna very kindly extended his arm, because he has elastic arms, all the way down to the bottom of the well and touched the lizard, and when he touched the lizard, he became transformed into a liberated king, seeing Krishna. So Jiva Goswami's point was that his bhakti didn't become destroyed, because bhakti can't be destroyed. But the bhakti became covered by that offense. And so he had to experience the reaction to that offense. But underneath the reaction of the offense, bhakti was still there. So when the offense was removed or relieved by Krishna, then he could see Krishna. So if we want to see Krishna, we want to be in pure Krishna consciousness, we have to be very careful about these 10 offenses. And here's Jiva Goswami speaking, or writing. King Nriga had bhakti, and thus he was not subject to Yamaraj, who takes only those who do not practice bhakti. He did not go to Yama's planet, but became a lizard, directly, presumably, because of his offense of discrediting the powers of bhakti. If he had accepted the glories of bhakti, as described in Scripture, he would not have given up serving the Lord and become absorbed in actions of karma. It is said that bhakti is stagnated by such an offense. Is it clear? Very clear, isn't it? So, the message, we're almost done, is stop watering the weeds and start watering the flowers. So, meaning the creeper of bhakti, and not these other difficult things. And that means very carefully guard against offenses while you're engaged in the spiritual gardening of growing, cultivating the creeper of bhakti. So that's the end of part 2. Any discussion? Yes. You have a question from yesterday that I didn't get to respond to. You have one from today also? 2 questions, which you're stalling for the microphone. Here comes the microphone.
I thought King Buddha was became a demigod because during his while he was a lizard, he was talking about himself.
Well, the main message of the narration is he saw Krishna, because that's whether he became this or that or the other thing. He was seeing Krishna means his material existence was now finished. Seeing Krishna where his heart was in the proper regard of devotion to Krishna, because others, like Shishupal and Duryodhana, they saw Krishna but they didn't see Krishna. So that's the important part. Okay? Now you had a question yesterday at the very end. You raised your hand, and I had already stopped. Do you remember what that question was? Can you say it?
How do we? It's a follow-up question to my father's question.
Follow-up question to your father's question. Okay.
How do you replace the bad thoughts with the Krishna thoughts?
Practice and purity. You don't invest in the bad thoughts. Withdraw attention from the bad thoughts and invest consciousness in, as you say, good thoughts. But especially, it's not exactly the thought, because thought will go to bad things. We're going to tomorrow evening's program is going to be at your place, or one of the Bhakti Vriksha members, and they're newer members. So there's can I just finish speaking? There's going to be some newer people, right? Some of their friends, because it's at their home. Huh? Okay. So I don't know if this topic is going to be appropriate for that group. Because this is a 201 topic, not a 101 topic. So what I'm thinking, on the way over here, we were discussing, having part 3 tomorrow morning and having something that's for 101 people tomorrow evening. Yes? Just in case they, you're hoping is what happens. Because I don't know if they're going to be able to relate to all of this, new people.
They move to new subjections. I'm not sure how many people, new people will be there, but I can, but how a subsection.
You understand the intention? I don't want to leave it hanging. I want to, let's do this. Those of you that would like to take part in part 3, either come to the temple or watch it live stream, because we're going to do part 3 tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow evening we'll do 101 something. New people. Something. Yes?
Maharaj, when you were explaining...
Did you get an answer to your question? It's not just bad thoughts, it's bhakti. Bhakti is far more than good thoughts. Because in part 3, we're going to find out that bad thoughts, bhakti has the power to completely remove the bad thought. But if it's the dim reflection of bhakti, or bhakti abhas, or namabhas, it has the power to put them in the dustbin. What do you call that when your computer? Recycled? Trash? Recycle bin? So what does that do? You use a computer, right? Okay. When you delete a file on your computer, what happens? It goes into that dustbin or trash bin. What it means is, it's still on your computer. It's just you can't access it by going to that place where it was, because now it can only be accessed through, but you can't even access it through the trash bin. You have to go and say, oh, please put it back where I can access it. Correct? And then, because it's still on your computer, unless you empty the trash bin. So, bhakti abhas, devotional service that's not pure yet, is like putting those bad thoughts into the trash bin. They're diminished. Like nashta prayeshu, abhadreshu, prayeshu, almost to nil. It's put in the trash bin. In the beginning stages, put it in the trash bin. But it's still there. It's got a big sign on it that says, please put me back over there. And when an offense is made again, because there's a tendency to do it again, when the offense is done again, it's back in the, this impure desire or impure thought comes again, although you were doing bhakti and it went away. You follow? So that's the practice, is turn your thoughts to Krishna. That's necessary, but we have to. The 201 is we have to go further, become pure, where there's only one thing, Krishna. Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the discussion regarding sin and offense, I understood that sin.
Can you turn the power button? This is like a heater. It's really hot up here. Sin or offense?
The effect of sin is on body and mind.
Yes.
And repeated habituation would lead to vasana.
Vasana, correct. That's terminology or language, semantics. It helps you understand the gravity increases over a period of time.
And you said the offense go deeper.
Yes.
And it's difficult to uproot offense.
Yeah.
The tendency persists.
Yes. Because it has direct effect on your regard towards Krishna.
My question, Maharaj, is these are after effects. So before committing the offense or the sin, how do we distinguish this is sin or this is offense? Because both look very close and
Yeah, they do. Well, let me think about that. My initial thought is sin has to do with morality, immorality, and you violate morality into the immorality, and that's what sin is. But then it becomes an offense when you sin on the strength of something that's spiritual that can counteract the sin, then it becomes offense. So it goes into the area of having ill regard for that which is spiritual. And it's, again, it's coming back to the question that you asked, Mukunda, you asked yesterday. And then there's different gravities of ill regard towards Krishna or things in relation to Krishna or those in relation to Krishna. It becomes offense when there's ill regard for Krishna. Yeah? Sure.
You said as part of Anarthas, there are 4 categories. One of them which leads to the Anartha or cause of Anartha is Hridaya Daurbalya, weakness of heart.
Weakness of heart. There's different systems or models of describing these things, but go ahead.
And one of the offenses is inattentive chanting,
Yes.
or lack of faith in the holy name.
Yeah, there's some overlap.
And
If that's what the point that you're making, yes, there's some overlap. It's not a bucket over here and then a bucket over there, and there's no overlap.
I was just comparing sin versus offense.
Yeah,
Where
there's
sin-
an overlap.
Where habituation of sin leads to downgradation,
Yes.
going deeper.
Yes.
Whereas for the offense towards holy name or chanting, the recommendation, as I've heard previously, and I think that's what is leading, is that we continue to chant attentively, keep chanting till we reach the stage of attention. So we are perpetrating the offense, so to speak, till the point that we stop it.
I got it.
But that's not downgrading, instead it's elevating.
So the operative principle in continuing to chant is there's faith in the principle that this is going to elevate me. It may be weak, it may be medium, it may be strong faith, and so it's going to take longer or medium or shorter. But it's the faith is the principle that's the operative elevating along with the name. It helps one come to a clearing stage of the name. And that's what abhas means, as opposed to aparad. I'm striving to go towards Shuddha. I have some faith that this will get me there. Even though I'm doing something, as you say, I'm doing something that's getting me covered, there's something else that's getting me uncovered. And that's stronger. It'll take long, depending upon the strength of faith.
How does strength of faith manifest?
By your effort, or not your effort, by the consciousness behind your effort.
Because as I understand,
And faith wavers. There's times when our faith is stronger and we experience something more when our faith is stronger. But faith wavers and it becomes weaker. And we're experiencing not that same something when our faith was stronger.
and with regards to the sin cycle, the vicious cycle that you explained,
Yeah.
the way to break it, you said, is to not do it at all, or not invest time in it.
Well-
Whereas in the
Well, that's not the only thing. You just good association is one of the best things. Being the company of those that understand that weakness, and they're helping through spiritual strength to help you overcome the weakness. Yeah? Here's the microphone over here. You have to turn it on.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the slide where you're helping us understand the difference between offense and sin,
Yes.
there was a mention about sin is one's desire to enjoy, but not the cost of existence of God.
Yes.
Whereas offense is at cost of, or to the extent of denying the existence of God.
Yes.
I was trying to put that in context of practicing devotee, where we're committing offenses. Is there a dormant nature in us that wants to deny the existence of God, and that's the reason for offenses? Because I'm trying to understand the difference between sin.
Well, all of these things are in degrees, or they're variable. Aside from our own devotees, just people, they consider themselves to be religious, but they do many sinful things. I don't know if you've had the opportunity of discussing with people about vegetarianism, and it's so obvious, but they can't, they don't get it because they don't want to get it, because they're attached to the taste of something that's not vegetarian. They just choose to not get it. Their consciousness is covered. But they don't have an attitude towards God. They have their interpretation of God. As far as God is concerned, it's good. So the covering is because of attraction for sense gratification. But then there's gradations of that. Then there's, having an attitude towards God. There's something that's an attitude towards God, otherwise they couldn't be covered. So it goes way back to Tattva Vibrahma, mistaken understanding of Tattva. So now how do you break that? You break that by Sambandha Gyan, or proper knowledge. And that comes from a qualified person who can give that. And you have your receiver on. You have proper regard for that person. So then it can go in. And then the Tattva Vibrahma can be eradicated. And then one can go, oh. And then gradually, whoop, 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 it becomes brighter. Illumination in the heart, and then there's no question of doing that again. Even there may be some residual tendency, you don't do it again, because the knowledge has illumined the heart, and that knowledge in its mature stage is bhakti. Very good. Very good. Okay?
My question was again relating offense.
Did I hit on the...
Yes, Maharaj,
Okay.
at the different levels.
Okay. Okay, now I have a follow-up one.
Yes.
Okay.
In the same lines, actually. Now we said the biggest cause of, or biggest offense is, which has the most effect, is blaspheming good, so sadhana. So, and the second one too,
Okay.
and the first one.
Okay.
So, me as a practicing devotee, is the root cause of the sadhana a tendency, I'm trying to relate that to the offense, a tendency of denying the existence of God, or
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Definitely. It's very supportive of that tendency to deny the existence of God, is to offend those who are dear to God. I mean, it's not like gross, blatant, like obvious and disgusting, but it's there. You just keep dialing it further, and we wouldn't even be in the material world if we didn't have that adversity to God. That's one of the Jiva Goswami's main themes. Bahirmukha Jiva. That's the original mistake or sin in his language. The original offense. And from that others. So it's just a downstream manifestation of that original one. Okay? Yeah.
Maharaj, you presented the danger of doubting the glories and the power of the holy name. And a very common question or concern that comes up from devotees is that I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for X amount of years, and I'm either not experiencing anything or I'm going down or something else. It's not working out.
Exactly.
So I was wondering, would that concern be considered doubting the holy name?
No.
Or
it depends on the person. It's not necessarily doubting the holy name. It could be, what am I doing wrong? Or it could be, what's wrong with the holy name? Or something. Or some family member that's irritating me, and therefore I don't, I'm distracted, and putting the blame somewhere else rather than taking ownership of one's relationship with Krishna. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. You two in front, you're doing fantastic. So far. And it's almost over, too.
Talking about Daksha.
Talking about?
Daksha Maharaj.
Daksha, okay.
Daksha. First time he got that head of the goat and everything, offended Lord Shiva. The second time around, he had performed great austerities.
He had what?
He had performed great austerities and pleased
Okay.
pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Lord Vishnu appeared.
Yeah. And then
After all that, can we say that it is his tendency?
yes, we can say that. We did say that. And we can say that. And Jiva Goswami says it. That's why I said it. It's very deep. So, you could say, well, what about us? And then I would say, well, the message for us is beware of offenses, because it's very deep. That was going to be the next question, right? Huh?
It's very hard. When you think about it, Maharaj.
Well, going back to Godhead isn't cheap. When Prabhupada's statement, if you want to buy a diamond, you have to be ready to pay the price. If you want, glass or plastic, no problem. It's a lesser price. You want a diamond? You have to pay the price. Is that all right? You don't want to pay the price.
Too much for me too.
No? If it's resting on you, it's too much, but it's not resting on you.
That it is so beautiful, the absolutely prayers and the Lord appearing before him and blessing him. Okay, you go ahead and do your job. And then after all that, again he said.
Well, he's proud. You'll stay tuned for tomorrow morning, because we'll go into exactly what you're, in anxiety about. It's deep. It doesn't stop just because you do prayers, beautiful prayers. And even Lord Vishnu may come. Look at Indra. Vishnu does this, and then he goes and does stupid things again. Okay. Take the microphone from her. Who's next? Anyone? We're finished? Okay. 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 Okay, we're done. We're done. Okay, one question and then one question and then we're done. 3 questions and we're done. Okay.
Maharaj, I'm trying to understand. But Maharaj, I'm trying to understand offensive in Bhagavatam here, Chitraketu Maharaj, not offending but Parvati, and thinks that he are offending Lord Shiva. Same time, Ambarish Maharaj, Durvasa Muni, he thinks he offended. Durvasa Muni gets reaction, goes to, it's a nice slap from Vishnu. But in the case of Chitraketu Maharaj, Parvati Devi did not get anything. Is that true, or is there anything which we not see in Bhagavad? Because both are devotees of Lord. Lord was differently playing with Durvasa Muni. He's differently playing with Parvati Devi. So I'm trying to understand how.
I'm trying to understand what you're trying to understand. What's your specific question? Don't say the stories again. Specifically, what's your question?
So in both cases,
Don't say the story again. What's the question?
question is why Lord is the reaction is different. In
He's
two cases.
free to do what he wants. He doesn't have to do it this way or that way because it doesn't meet your sensibilities. He can do whatever he wants. Now, in the case of Chitraketu, he brought him back to Godhead. And he got an opportunity to preach to Indra. Now, Indra is a worshipper of Lord Vishnu and is very dear to Lord Vishnu, but he somehow, doesn't get it together. He does stupid things. So he's giving him this fantastic association. King Chitraketu in the form of a demon. What do you think? Hey, he can do whatever he wants. And and sometimes a devotee will exhibit power. This is an example that's given by Jiva Goswami. Dhruva exhibited power. He was Prahlad. But sometimes the devotee doesn't exhibit power. Like Maharaj Parikshit was killed by a snake bird. So, or why didn't Krishna protect Maharaj Parikshit? He protected him when he was in the womb. Why did he protect him? He took him back to Godhead. And he wants to take him back to Godhead this way, that way, the other way. No problem. He's glorious. It's the bhakti within Maharaj Parikshit that's glorious. They went back to Godhead. Prahlad went back to Godhead. And he did it in a different way. There's all kinds of variety. No problem. The Lord wants to glorify His devotees in different ways, and so He does it in different ways. Next question.
Krishna Maharaj, I was thinking regarding offenses, can they be unintentional?
Sure.
Like, can you not realize that you're making them?
Yes, it happens a lot.
So then how do you recognize that you're making them? And
Well, if you won't recognize that you're making them, if you're not recognizing you're making them. You can assume I'm making offenses, even I don't recognize I'm making offenses. Now the next question is what to do about that. But that was a question last night. Remember that one last night?
I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't there. Okay. Well, someone asked that question, And I replied by saying, Prabhupada was once asked that question, and he said, therefore, we offer this prayer every day, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, that we wish the Vaishnavas who we have unknowingly offended to please forgive us. Now, we're not addressing them because they're maybe not in the room or not hearing the prayer, but Krishna hears the prayer. So unknowing offenses, there's nothing we can do about it because we don't know about it other than, it's two things. We learn what offenses are and carefully guard against them, and for today's and yesterday's and last year's offenses, this lifetime's offenses, we pray to those persons who we've unknowingly offended to be kind and forgive us. We're dependent upon their mercy. And if Krishna sees our heart truly humble and repentant, Krishna is attracted to that. And Krishna helps. Is that all right? Okay. Last question? Oh, you don't need a microphone. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is around sometimes when we do our devotional service, or I guess I'll just take my example. Sometimes when I engage in devotional services, the intent or consciousness is there to please Krishna, please devotees. But a lot of times when I do devotional services, the intent is, there's an element of that it makes me happy. It takes me away from day-to-day stress. And so there's definitely an element of pleasing Krishna, pleasing devotees. But there's also this element of sense enjoyment.
You're human.
Service. Sorry?
You're human.
So is that a sin or offense by having not conscious 100% pleasing Krishna?
No, it's not sin or offense. It's human. But it is something unwanted. It is in the category of anartha. It's not the category of aparad. It's not in the category of sin. It's in the category of unwanted, anartha. And if you continue with anartha knowingly, and don't strive to become free from that, then it becomes offense. It has to do with your regard for Krishna and keeping yourself in the center. But if you're striving in devotional service, proportionate to the effort, sincere effort that you're making to please Krishna, you'll be relieved of it. Devotional service has that power. Please put it into the trash bin. And then when some offense is made, it goes out of the trash bin back onto your hard drive. And you're accessing it. And the mood again returns of being the enjoyer. Until one comes to the position of pure devotion. It'll be there. It's not a sin or an offense that it's there. Unless you do the devotional service simply because I feel I'm at the center and I'm comfortable. Then it's not really devotional service. It's utilitarian. More than for Krishna. Okay. So we have to strive in that direction. That's the message. You got the message.
Follow-up question.
Okay, fine.
So I've also heard that, or I've heard devotees saying that you can only be happy in devotional services if Krishna is pleased. So could it be that I'm thinking it's my sense enjoyment, but actually I'm being pleased.
Well,
I'm not able to compile the thoughts.
I follow what you're saying. Just keep it simple rather than get mental. We're mixed devotees. So there's some of both. That's simple, right? Okay. So we'll end there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai.